What is going on, guys? My name is Brandinho and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to dive deeper than we haven't gone before by reacting to Marina creatures that are scarier than the Megladon. Time to see all the myths, all the legends, all the what the hell is down there.
There have been creatures that have been so mighty, so terrifying, and so powerful that we modern-day humans are eternally grateful that they don't exist in our world anymore.
Okay.
For those who love the oceans, they're glad that the Megladon doesn't exist in its depths. During the age of dinosaurs, the Megladon was a massive shark that might have been 20 meters long and weighed a whole heck of a lot. They were apex predators of the ancient depths and will hopefully never see anything like it again. However, that doesn't mean there aren't creatures in our world that aren't equally as scary. The bloop sea monster.
Heard of that one? Yep.
Allow me to ask you this very important question right off the bat.
Okay.
What is more feared than the unknown? After all, isn't that one of the things that keeps us rooted in our routines and not exploring the wide world that's out there? And when it comes to the depths of the oceans, we don't know everything that's out there, and thus, it makes some fearful of what might lie deep within its depths. A great example of this is
Look at those things. Obviously, that's not real, but
that many wonder about.
Imagine
after
being
a
that mouth.
mysterious sound was captured by scientists.
Ooh.
The bloop is a noise with an ultra-low frequency that was recorded in 1997 in the middle of the Pacific Ocean by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Creepy.
Some people say that it was an unknown sea creature, while others say the sound had been caused by an iceberg that was splitting from Antarctica.
Is that not the same noise as a whale makes, though? Is it not? Like, I don't know what exactly whales make, but it's not similar. Like, how do you tell a difference? I don't know. We'll never know. I'm not a fish genius, as we know. We had discovered in the past. I'm not a fish genius.
An important part of this sound is that it was recorded both above and below the water's surface, which immediately shows that it's not a known creature, as animals like whales do make sounds underwater, but they're typically not heard from the surface unless the whales themselves are up there. As noted, the first sound from the bloop would be recorded in 1997, and then it popped up once again in 2012. So it might have taken 15 years, but we did hear it twice, which means that it was more than just a one-off event.
Right.
So, is it a sea creature that's making this noise? That is the mystery that many people want to figure out, and it's not an easy thing to do if not obvious. There are many who maintain that it's just an ice shelf breaking off or something of the like, but others are not so convinced that that's the case. If there is something out there that has made this sound, and it can project it over 5,000 kilometers away, then it's something that could very well make the Megladon look tame. Or it could even be Cthulhu, and if that's the case, then we're all screwed. The frilled shark.
Ooh.
Now, there will be a shark or two on this list simply because while the Megladon was the most feared thing in the depth during its day, that's not to say that the sharks of the modern day aren't to be feared as well. And when it comes to the frilled shark, it's scary simply because it doesn't look like any shark that you would recognize. They're what are known as a living fossil because their species have existed for millions of years and they haven't really evolved that much, which, if you think about it, is kind of a contradiction because you would expect a creature to move on in some ways and grow to better adapt to their surroundings.
That is a new one that I've learned now, because I've never seen that one before or heard of it. So that is a new one to the list.
With the frilled shark, it's not the case. And because of this, they look more like an eel than they do a shark.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, look at their leathery bodies and how they don't have a fin on their
I'll tell you what though, the pattern's cool.
Every shark species that you know.
Their pattern is cool.
When it comes to swimming, they do so in an eel-like fashion and not like any other sharks. When it comes to hunting, they're as scary as a shark should be. They're active predators and may lunge at potential prey, swallowing it whole, even if it is quite large.
Right.
And that's why they're going to want to end things in one shot, and it means plenty of prey are on its list. Going back to the first entry, there's a lot of fear of the unknown with the frilled shark because it lives at such a depth that it's rarely ever filmed, and thus hardly ever studied. To that end, nobody honestly knows their ecology, their population numbers, and more. It might be better that way, though, because it also means we won't be learning much about them soon.
Okay.
Giant squid. Now, there are plenty of monsters in the depths that have gotten people spooked over the generations, and you could argue that the giant squid is one of the most legendary of them all in the deep, simply because of how many stories they've crafted. Easily, the scariest part about them would be their size. They can be at least 13 meters long, And I say at least because that's the largest one that scientists have been able to personally measure. There are many who would speculate that they can actually grow many meters taller, and because they live in the depths, it's not easy to get one to the surface to check out. Many of those giant squids that have been found is simply because they've washed up on the beach, which no doubt has terrified many people when it's occurred. And when you hear how great they are at hunting, it may well give you the chills. Giant squid can snatch prey up of about 10 meters away simply by shooting out 2 feeding tentacles, which are tipped with hundreds of powerful sharp-toothed suckers. These feeding tentacles are quite long, often doubling the total length of the giant squid on their own. And once that prey is ensnarled in the tentacles, they're slowly drawn towards the beak, where their final resting place lies. And trust me, if you do get close enough to a giant squid to see its beak, you are more than likely in trouble and already dead. Just as scary, though, are the legends about them. This is one of those creatures that has inspired
I'll be scared
the
of squid, I
legend
think.
of the
Definitely
Kraken,
100%
because
be scared of
sailors
squid.
feared that these tentacled beasts would
That
rise
reaches
up
out to
from
you,
the depths
you're dead.
and sink
You're
their
gone.
boats without any issue.
Yeah.
To an extent, they could sink a small boat, but probably not one that's made out of metal.
Nah, forget
then again, nobody can say for certain that
That'd
the
be
Kraken
terrifying,
doesn't
though.
exist. Now can they? Deep sea dragonfish. Now here's another creature that is incredibly deadly and yet also incredibly small.
That is
it's
tiny,
the deep sea
yeah.
dragonfish, and they can be about 26 meters at times, but can also
It
be
looks like a
around
bullet.
14, and
It looks like the bullet from Super Mario. It actually does.
yet when you look at them up close, you cannot deny that they're freaky looking and that you don't want them nibbling on
They're
you.
so
What may be
tiny.
the scariest thing about them, though, is the
What the
barrel
hell?
that they have by their mouth. The tip of this barrel can be illuminated through a chemical process known as bioluminescence. This is dangled right in front of their mouth, and as soon as a poor, unsuspecting creature comes too close, that's when the attack
They must be
is
so
launched,
quick.
and the victim is then devoured.
Must be
much
so
like
quick.
the anglerfish, they will use light and darkness in combination in order
Their
to
speed
get
must be
their
like
food.
bullets.
It is a rather vicious and scary process.
Well, I didn't have much information to it, but still, I think they're quite cool. They look like bullets on Super Mario. I feel like they're quite cool, actually.
The stonefish. What does it mean to be scary? Well, to many, it's having an intimidating appearance that can chill you to the bone. But another thing that can make an entity scary is that simply touching them can spell some doom for you. Now, there are many venomous creatures in the deep that are scary, but few are as lethal as the stonefish. The stonefish is the most venomous fish in all of the ocean, and
Oh,
many
okay.
people have died after becoming stung by
Oh,
one.
wow. I
That's
didn't know
not an
that.
exaggeration
I didn't know
either.
that one.
For example, in Australia, there are almost 1,000 stings reported by the stonefish every single year.
1,000 stings. To be fair, though, that's not really a lot of stings throughout it. It's not really a lot, is it?
It means that there could be almost 1,000 victims of this single fish, and all it has to do is sting them to cause it. Before
True.
you go panicking, though, there is an antivenom for the stonefish, but that doesn't make it any less terrifying.
Yeah.
Here's where we have a bit of the good news, bad news scenario. The good news is that the stonefish does not seek out humans to attack them.
Well, that's
In
fine
fact,
then.
they're ambush predators, preferring to let the prey come to them. The bad news, though, is that they're masters of camouflage, which also means that a stonefish could be right near you.
Yeah, you would
and
never see
would
that.
Never know it until it was
They fully
possibly
blend
too
in.
late. So even if you do think that you've been stung by the fish, you're going to need to get out of the water and seek treatment, because you'll know you're in trouble when your body begins screaming in pain. The venom is so strong that it can literally stop your heart. And
Wow,
one of the
okay.
ironies of the stonefish is that, not unlike
Damn,
the
they're deadly.
pufferfish, there are some nations that actually like to eat the fish. They simply cook the venom out of it and dine like there's nothing wrong. This is why I fear for humanity at times.
Yeah. I mean, not terrifying, but yeah, deadly.
Deep sea hatchetfish.
Again, that's
You're
tiny.
going to notice that a lot of these creatures have deep sea in their names. Furthermore, some of these fish do have a great range, so that name could be a misnomer at times. Regardless, this is one freaky fish because of how it uses
Like a disco
light.
ball looking
And
fish,
no,
isn't it? It's like a
doesn't
fever one.
use it to lure fish
a night
to
fever
them
fish.
so that they can be eaten. It's quite the opposite.
Look how cool
actually.
that looks.
They use a skill called counter-illumination.
That is an alien.
Essentially, they're
I'm sorry, right, but if you're telling me that does not look like an alien, like, what does an alien look like to you?
will
Look,
emit that
what
light
is
to
that?
shield
That is
them
an
from
alien.
view by predators below. If you think of it like this,
Look at that.
just imagine that you were above someone.
Terrifying.
And you could shine a light down on them to make it look, from their perspective, that they were looking up at the sky above you instead. you'd be invisible to their sight, and that's what the hatchet fish does. How did it learn such a useful skill? Well, I simply choose not to ask such questions.
Yeah, 100% aliens.
Barrel eye fish.
What the frick
Now,
is
as
that
I
thing?
noted before, there are many different
What is
definitions
that?
of scary that could get creatures onto this list.
You
But
can
when
see
it comes
through
to
that.
The barrel eye fish, they have an evolutionary adaptation that makes them arguably weirder than just about
They look
any fish out
weird.
there. But how so? Well, the fact becomes most obvious
you can see
the
through
viewing
it.
of these fish's heads. I mean,
What?
the upper part of their heads are transparent, and through that, the fish almost always has its eyes facing upwards so that it can see the shadows of its prey or
That's
predators
clever.
and react accordingly.
That's clever, but what the hell?
It can also apparently move its eyes forward.
It looks
which
like you can see its
makes it
brain
even
as
more
well.
Freakier. And this is one of those fishes where you can't help but ask, how
That
did
is
it
weird
evolve to
looking.
be like this? Nobody honestly knows, but it clearly works for them, given that they keep this ability through each
Jesus.
cycle of their life.
That's like a fish feeling out of like a game or something, like a Subnautica game. I'm not going to go over that. The fact you can see through the fish, that is transparent. That's bizarre.
The goblin shark.
Ooh, garbage sharks.
We now return to the shark part of the ocean, where we talk about one of the most horrifying things ever conceived. Yes, I know I could say that about many of the creatures on this list, but trust me, when it comes to the goblin shark, it very well deserves it. First,
Whoa.
just look at the freaky thing. Does it
Yeah.
look like a creature that you'd really want to mess with? Secondly, it's a rather long shark on average, as it can be 3 to 4 meters in length, which is more than enough to size up a human should they ever meet in the depths. And while they do live in the Mariana Trench at times,
Yeah.
they've also been seen in as little as 100 meters below sea level. So you should be careful out there. But if I'm going to talk about why the thing is so scary compared to the Megladon, well, that's when you have to talk about its feeding habits.
Yeah, what the
when
hell?
it has prey that it wants to eat, it doesn't simply just bite the fish
That's
as you would
weird.
expect. Oh no, that would be much
just
too simple.
comes out.
Instead, it actually extends its mouth
Extends its
outside
mouth,
of
yeah.
its body and grabs the food that way. Yes, just like a xenomorph.
That is a
Perhaps you
villain.
understand how freaky
That is
that is.
a
This
horror
tactic
villain.
alone raises so many questions that just has to make you wonder what other depraved creatures have this kind of monstrous ability.
Look at
Because
that.
even the Megalodon didn't have a need for such a feature. It just simply ate everything in sight
Yeah.
and then called it a day. And when you have to act like an alien just to get a bite to
Weird.
eat, well, you're freaky, and I don't want to talk about you anymore.
Fair enough, fair enough.
The vampire squid.
What?
Now, if you thought that the giant squid would be the only one to make this list, well, you would be wrong, because now I'm going to show you a terrifying squid that also has the ability to suck your blood while you roam the depths.
Oh, mad.
No, not really, but that'd be terrifying if it were true. The real reason that it's called the vampire squid, and why it's scary, is that because when you look at it from the outside, it may look like a simple squid with
I don't know if I've
unique
seen
skin
this before.
around its
Not
tentacles.
sure. I don't think I've seen that one before.
But when you look on its inside,
might have seen that
of
shit,
the
but
bottom
never know what
part,
it's called.
You're going to notice that those tentacles have spines that it uses to grab its prey. Cute on the outside, deadly on the inside, and the ultimate
Is it
predator
killing you outside? Didn't get much description on that one either, but it's still cool.
The sarcastic fringe head. When you're
Sarcastic
in the
friendship.
depths,
What?
and you know that a predator is coming at you, you only have a few options to escape with your life. You can either attack them and hope that you beat them back, you can flee and hope that you get away, or you can intimidate them and make them think that you're a whole lot more dangerous
what?
than you actually are.
Oh my
the last
God.
option is the trademark of the sarcastic fringe head. This fish is not unlike a certain lizard on the surface that looks small when you see it from afar, but then when they get aggressive, they'll open up their mouths and
That's-
expand their necks to try
Bro,
and
look at
have
their
a bigger
mouths. Look at
appearance.
that.
When two fringe
That's
heads have a
insane.
territorial battle, they wrestle by pressing their distended mouths against each other.
They just
press
scare them, they
against
don't
each
eat
other
them.
until one of them is able to bite the other's head. Wow, what a whole lot of fun that is.
That honestly looks like the most fun a fish could ever have in its life. Predator comes at them and it's like, wow. And they're like, yeah, what? What? What are you saying? What? That is the coolest, most fun looking fish ever. That is sick.
The lion's mane jellyfish. Now, it's actually a little surprising that I haven't talked about a jellyfish before now, because there are plenty of them in the ocean that would fall under the banner of
That
Scarier
jellyfish looks like a
than
mess.
Megladon, simply
Looks like more of an
because of their
explosion.
sting. And when it comes to the lion's mane jellyfish, there's a whole lot more than its sting that you'll have to worry about. You see, this jellyfish has a length of over 40 meters.
That looks like an explosion right there.
And
Look
I
at the
mean that
tentacles.
as just the tentacles are 40 meters long. It also means you're going to need to include the body in the rest of the measurement. Perhaps you'll understand how big that is. It means that as you're swimming through the water, you could collide with its tentacles, and then the body of the jellyfish would be a long ways away, not even realizing that you were even in its range.
Wow.
But don't worry, even if you are stung by this jellyfish, it is not exactly deadly, but it will hurt
at
a
that.
whole lot. Using the powerful sting
That's
of its
quite
tentacles, the lion's mane jellyfish
That must be
catches
deadly,
small
yeah.
fishes, tiny crustaceans, and even other jellyfish in order to satisfy its diet. Oh, and here's another scary fact for you. The tentacles of the lion's mane jellyfish can still sting you even after they've detached from the body, and
Oh,
even
wow.
when the jellyfish is dead. In fact, it's said that a single lion's mane jellyfish can sting up to 50 people in one day, despite
wow.
the jellyfish's body being found
Yeah,
dead
forget that.
later
Nope,
on.
don't be
They
something about
just
that
love
thing.
to sting you, even if they don't mean to. Headless chicken monster.
What?
There are so many jokes that I could make here, but I'm getting close to the end and I'm not exactly going to do that. No, I'm not scared to make the jokes. Don't call me chicken. The headless chicken monster is a deep-sea swimming cucumber. I know. That looks like a decapitated chicken. Hence the name.
What?
Now, seriously, when you look at the thing, you may think that you're looking at a roaming piece of meat.
Yeah.
But no, it's actually a living thing, for better or for worse.
That's new. Like a piece of like heart.
I know to
That is a
barely have
like
the
a lung,
functions to keep
basically.
itself alive. Sometimes you just have to wonder why things even exist in the first place.
Yep. Honestly, now nothing surprised me. Honestly, nothing surprised me anymore. What lives out there?
The Japanese spider
Whoa.
crab. Crabs are not typically a creature that you would openly identify as being scary in the traditional sense. Yes, they can be scary when they grip onto you with their pinchers and threaten to rip your finger off, but plenty more think of them simply as the seafood they like to enjoy. However, if you want to look at a crab that many people think are scary, you only need to look at the Japanese spider crab. This
Whoa,
crab
that's cool.
is one that's much larger than many
Whoa.
of those out there by a wide margin. They're so
They are
huge, in
cool.
fact, that they can measure
That's
4
cool.
meters from the tip of one front claw to the other.
That is 8 legged freaks right there.
The first man who had caught this crab off the coast of Japan was so amazed by its size
Look at that.
he called it Crabzilla. Now, yes, these creatures are
Literally,
not
that's
found
Crabzilla.
in the Mariana Trench, as they don't go below 550 meters,
Whoa,
but they
that's
can
loads.
also be right near the surface of the water, which is why they're seen on a regular basis in Japan. Sure, they may not be
Yeah,
as terrifying
that
as
makes sense.
Megalodon in the traditional
That's cool,
sense,
though.
but you do have to wonder how a crab goes from the more compact yet strong version that we often see on the beaches of the world, and then
So what's the
somehow
deadly
becomes
part?
this behemoth in a place like Japan.
So like, what's the deadly part about them? I don't understand. Like, they don't look deadly. They just look cool. Alright, what is number one? Out of all those lists, what is number one?
Moray eels. When people think
Oh,
of
yeah.
eels, they tend to think of the
We know about
electric
moray
variety
eels, but
that
come
inhabits
on.
the Amazon. But to those that know the moray
Are they
eel,
that
they know
bad?
that it can be equally as frightening and deadly without the need for any kind of superpowers. For example, it can come in a variety of colors, which will often
I mean, we've
get
had
them
them in the
mistaken
past.
for sea snakes. Another trait that they have is that they have poor eyesight.
Are they that bad though?
However, they make up for that with an acute sense of smell that is so powerful.
I mean,
they
they're
can
like
even track
dinosaurs,
prey
basically. They're sea
after they've
dinosaurs.
hidden just by their
Like
scent
mini
alone.
ones.
And so, if this eel catches your scent, well, you're not getting away if it has its way, and their
Fair enough,
hunting
fair
methods will go well beyond simply smelling and finding. Although they're solitary creatures, they will often hunt alongside the grouper fish. While researchers are unsure how exactly they collaborate or communicate in their hunting strategy, it seems that it begins with a head nod to one another. They work jointly to corral their victim into a tight group when hunting, and that kind of teamwork is rare amongst different species of the animal
Yeah.
kingdom. Could you
That's fair enough,
simply
fair enough.
imagine if the Megalodon
I can see why it
was
could be
able to
it's
hunt
number
in
one.
groups? Perhaps even with the giant squid? Nothing would have been able to stop them then. So let's be glad that this evolutionary trait never manifested.
Wow, you know what? I really enjoyed that video. I really did. Learned some new stuff. I feel I was well educated, I would say, because obviously I knew like barely any of them. And I'm not going to sit here saying I do know them as well. I think the sarcastic fish was my favourite one. That looked like the most fun fish ever, honestly. So yeah, that's a favourite one. But yeah, nice. I enjoyed that.